Hello there and welcome to Shuttlebay 4. Season 4 of Deep Space Nine felt like a reboot. Sisko looked and felt different, the opening theme was reworked, the opening sequence was different, we had new characters, we had a new, although familiar, cast member. And it all kicked off with this epic feature-length episode.
So my one-liner for this episode is, Klingons decide to kick Cardassian ass and tear up the peace treaty with the Federation. Everything is at risk.
I'm going to end it now.
I think as a one-liner, that kind of, does the job.
Fair enough. And there's only one Klingon in the entire galaxy that can help them.
And he's in the right place at the right time.
Do you know, it's funny how that happens a lot in Trek, isn't it? The one person that depicts everything happens to it. I mean,
well, you must admit, out of all the episodes you've seen him introducing a character into it, it's got to be one of the best.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
To introduce Worf, and it's just after what generation? So the Enterprise has been destroyed.
Brace for impact! And it's good the way to do it, because you get that that shot from his feet moving up. It's like, oh, who's this? Who's this? Oh, it's Worf.
Well, when we first saw it,
you see the TNG uniform, don't you, and his sash, and
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because the thing is, his uniform looks so different because he's wearing like the TNG uniform. It looks really different when he's surrounded by everybody else wearing the the Deep Space Nine uniform. It really feels like two worlds collide in this episode. The TNG world and Deep Space Nine world. Now, I don't want to scare people when I say this, but I genuinely think I could talk for about 2 hours about Way the Warrior. I'm not gonna, obviously, don't worry. So this episode, it feels big. Do you know what I mean? It feels like I know it is a two-parter, so it technically is a big episode, but it feels big, not just in terms of duration, it just feels big overall. It feels like a reboot as well, because you've got Sisko version 2.0, it looks different.
I've written exactly that. I've written it feels like DS9 2.0.
Oh, there you go.
It is like a reboot of itself.
It is like a reboot, because you've got new ranks, you've got Worf, you've got the updated theme, the updated opening sequence, you've got a new Klingon flagship being introduced, you've got Martok. You've got so many things happening in this episode that are brand new.
Becomes a new character, you know what I mean? He really becomes a new character from this episode.
I couldn't agree more. It's like they've replaced Commander Sisko. It does feel like a completely different character. It doesn't feel like he's shaved his head. It feels completely different. And it feels really heavy this episode as well. It feels like a workplace under threat. And I use the word workplace deliberately there because there's a scene where Kira Nerys is she mentions about staff having performance reviews.
Performance reviews will be held tomorrow starting at 0800 hours.
And that's the sort of thing that doesn't normally get mentioned. But it's a really great throwaway line. It makes you realize that these are normal people doing a job and everything's under threat, and it does heighten that sense of peril. It starts with like a military style drill as well, so straight away you're like, something's up here. Bashir tells people to expect broken bones and blunt force trauma.
You can expect severe lacerations, broken bones, and blunt force traumas.
And there's a bit where they go on a mission and there's an exploded ship or whatever. It's like, oh, should we check for survivors? And they decide, no, we're not going to do that.
If there are survivors.
Sorry, Doctor, we can't risk it.
And it feels completely different to any other Star Trek. It's dark, it's gritty, you've got genuine peril, you've got the end of peace with the Klingons. It looks as though that's what's going to happen. It throws the entire Federation into jeopardy. This could be the end of Star Trek as we know it. And I would love to go back in time to read some 1995 internet forums, to read loads of people saying, this isn't Star Trek. It is, if you compare this to, say, light and fluffy Star Trek, like with TNG, and also we had, Voyager, I think. Was that 96 or 95 Voyager? I can't remember when Voyager came out. But either way.
This is not Trek You Through the Stars, is it? This is not Trek You Through the Stars. It's like, what's going on here?
Exactly, yeah. It kind of does. I mean, it feels like Star Trek now. Watch it back. I can imagine at the time people are like, whoa, what's going on here? It is a bit of it is very different. Although it's a really serious episode, though, there's so much humor in this episode. Now, normally, I quote like my favorite lines, with funny lines of the episode, but it's pointless doing that with this because there were just so many of them. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably just stick a montage of, like great lines in here. A couple of examples that we've got. How's a Ferengi meant to make an honest living in a place like this? And that's just what the station needs, another Klingon.
Just what the station needs, another Klingon.
But speaking of best lines, okay, I've kind of just got a couple of characters to mention. So, right, admit.
Bruh, leave it alone.
Hey, Gibbo, you there?
Hello!
Hey!
Bruh kicked you out.
Right, Gibbo, the plan was for you to run through your notes on this because you picked the episode, but because you didn't join, I started running through mine. So I'll finish mine, and then you jump in with yours, okay?
Okay, that's fine. I've been trying to get on for like 25 minutes.
It only started 13 minutes ago, though, so maybe that's why.
Doesn't matter. I've been trying early because I'm impatient.
Right, I was just talking about great lines in this episode. It's a really serious episode, but there's also lots and lots of humor all the way throughout the episode, which kind of balances it out and, maybe it lightens it slightly. And then I was just mentioning Garak, because Garak, he's got some great lines, which aren't just funny. They're just genuinely great lines. And he really revels in people knowing that he's a spy. And it's like, he's almost not really masking it. If somebody were to say to Garak, "Oh, you're a Cardassian spy," his reaction would probably be, "Me?" Really? You know what I mean? It'd make it really obvious that he is.
Me? The 13th Duke of Wimbledon? Yeah.
But he'd deny it. And he does that in this episode, It likes people to know that he's dangerous and that he's involved with dangerous people. His inclusion on Deep Space Nine, I think, is genius. And it works really well in this episode because later on they get him to deliver a message that they wouldn't be able to deliver themselves. And I just love the way they do that. Yeah, exactly. They all know he's a spy. And I loved watching that. I must admit, I was grinning at the screen watching that because I completely forgot about that moment, to be honest. And when he gets beaten up by a Klingon, he jokes that he gets some cutting remarks in. And at first it just comes across as a funny line, like he's trying to, maybe salvage a bit of, save face a bit. But he isn't. That line says a lot about Garak because he's all psychological and he genuinely means it. Yeah, I've got a black eye, I've got a cut lip or whatever. But he said things to them that will psychologically mess with them and that'll stay with them for a while.
I got off several cutting remarks, which no doubt did serious damage to their egos.
Everything that Garak says and does is done deliberately. Every single line he says and the way he delivers it counts for something, not just in this episode, but in every episode. But the dialogue in this episode is absolutely brilliant. And it feels like this episode was, the script was written and then they thought, right, we're going to have one more pass over it now just to make the dialogue really sparkle. And it does. I can't think of any episode of Star Trek or any film where the dialogue is as good from beginning to end. We got like Sisko and Martok, Sisko and Dukat, Dukat and Garak. You've got loads of brilliant interactions.
Scene with even Worf and Sisko, that scene with them too, and he's trying to get Worf to consider what he's going to do in the future. That's a really good scene. It's kind of understated, but it's a really.
I think
really
a lot of this is understated. There's a lot. It's like they went through all the lines and said, right, how can we condense this to make it still say the same thing with the fewest number of words? Kind of the opposite of what I do.
Yeah.
And you've got characters in this who are forced to form like little personal allegiances that they normally wouldn't have. Like Garak and Dukat, for example, they hate each other, but they're forced to fight alongside each other. And you get a lot of that throughout this episode. It was nice to see these people relying on people that they will probably otherwise hate to rely on. Dax, I think, is great in this episode as well. I think she owns her sexuality in this episode. It's great. In Star Trek, we often see female characters getting sexualized or, objectified, exploited. And I don't doubt that behind the whole scene with Dax and this holographic knocking shop that she's got, I don't doubt that there was a male fantasy behind it somewhere, but it doesn't come across that way. It feels like Dax is owning her sexuality and she's enjoying that situation and that she's got a mature approach to sexuality and enjoying it.
That's what a holosuite's for, to have a good time.
And Dax feels like a really strong character in this episode. She's constantly got one over on Worf. Whenever she's talking to him, she's kind of playing with him, but not in a girly, flirty way. She's constantly making sure that he's off guard. She speaks.
She's challenging him all the time.
She's constantly challenging, and I think she's genuinely brilliant in this. She's amusing herself in this episode, and it's good to see, her, just be a really good, strong character. Sisko, I've got a love-hate relationship with Sisko. For the first few seasons, it didn't convince me. And I'm not going to go into all that because I've mentioned it in other episodes. But in this episode, I think the word I've got is magnificent. I think it's brilliant in this episode. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Sisko version 2.0, where he just, comes into his own.
Why that is because he shaved his head and become a baldy like me.
Exactly. Well, he sounds like he is more comfortable in his skin.
He was completely bald.
It is the first one, but I think he is more comfortable. I feel like he always looked uncomfortable before, and I think he is more comfortable as a character.
It comes across a lot as an actor, but also the character for me. It's not just the actor feels comfortable with it. It's kind of the character all of a sudden grows into that as well immediately from this episode, and so he becomes badass, doesn't he? You don't think of him as badass before this episode, but afterwards he is a badass.
Yes. But all the good stuff he had before, he's still got. He's still a strong father. He's still got a strong relationship with it. It's not like that disappears. That remains.
Exactly. Yeah,
but he's just got this extra level to him, and I do love it. Worf. So I wasn't a big fan of Worf in TNG. I just wasn't. I didn't dislike him. I just wasn't a massive fan. But in Deep Space Nine, I do love him. And like I said at the beginning, when you see him in that TNG uniform, it feels like two worlds colliding. And the two worlds have never felt so different. TNG and Deep Space Nine than this episode with the whole feel of this episode.
Yes.
And Worf, I think, really shines in this episode. I love the scene where he's playing darts because I don't play games.
I do not play games.
And he just launches it. I thought it was a brilliant scene. Brush, you mentioned that scene where he's talking to Sisko, or one of the scenes. There's a scene where Worf says that it's important that he doesn't ignore responsibility for the things that he's done. And it feels like at that moment, that's where Sisko thinks, I want him on my ship.
I cannot avoid responsibility for what I have done today.
You know what I mean? He's got absolute respect for him, and he realizes that he is something special. Odo, we get a really good moment in this, right? Where Odo basically explains that when he's drinking, he's not really drinking. He is the cup.
Yeah.
And the reason why I really like that scene is I am sure that in the past, in fact, probably quite recently, I've heard people criticize Odo, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, if he's a shapeshifter, how does he drink? It must go straight through his body." And in this episode, we get an actual explanation to that. He's not eating, he's not drinking. It's his own physical matter that he's consuming. And I thought that was really, really quite clever. I think the Star Trek universe really expands in this episode because it never really happened in TOS, not even so much in TNG. The films did, but in this episode you get lots of talks about Cardassia and dissident uprisings. We get talks about treaties, the Khitomer Agreement, and all that jazz. And it just feels like the whole Star Trek universe feels much bigger in this episode than it's ever felt before.
When I was looking up, I haven't written this down, but when I was looking up on that fandom page, I can't remember what it's called. Literally, when it says related things to this episode, you had to scroll down and down and down because they obviously it's a two-parter, but you're right, in the background they mention things that we know are already established within Star Trek. And so interesting that you've picked it up because it was a point that they mentioned references from so many other elements, TNG films, etc.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just because it's a double episode. I mean, obviously it does have more time to just fill it with stuff. It just feels like all this stuff it's just, like I say, there's no wasted moments in this episode.
Yeah, you're right,
I have nearly finished now. One comment I've got, though, is about Cassidy. When I'm watching this episode, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I couldn't quite remember what happened. But I was convinced that Cassidy was a spy watching this, because she's always asking Sisko, what's that mission you're going on? And I thought, what's going to happen is towards the end, she'll shapeshift, and you realise that she was a spy all along. But she wasn't a spy. But I honestly thought she was.
You were about to go off on some kind of mission?
I never could keep a secret.
Maybe you could tell me what all those maintenance crews are doing in the docking ring, and you can't tell me about it. Now you are keeping a secret.
Well, she did turn out to be a Maquis, though, didn't she?
Yeah, but I mean,
and
just
she was
within
sent
this
to
episode.
jail.
How funny would it have been, though, if she was secretly Odo?
Secretly Odo, that would have been brilliant,
You know how brilliant.
That would have been brilliant. And if it turns out he actually could nail, like, the human appearance, he was just lying all along so nobody would suspect anything. That would have been great.
People around the shape going, yeah, I'm doing Warp tonight.
That would have been brilliant. If there'd have been an episode where, like, Miles says to Keiko O'Brien, I'll tell you what, last night you were absolutely amazing. And he walks away and she's like, I don't know what he's on about. You just see Odo in the background grinning.
Is it so hard to believe?
That would be an amazing cartoon strip, that would.
That would be
Odo, yeah, that would be an amazing
That would be
cartoon
brilliant.
strip.
That would be brilliant. Got 4 just random notes at the end. Number 1, we see exploding consoles in this. It's a Star Trek trope, and I think we see it a few times in this episode. Quark gives a free drink. I don't think we ever see that again.
Help yourself. It's on the house.
Well, how uncharacteristically generous of you.
I would love to see this episode upscaled and remastered because I feel like it really deserves it. And
there's no Blu-ray, there's no blue thing. It's all still a bit fuzzy now. But no matter what you watch it in, it's not been Blu-rayed or anything. It's not.
Well, no.
crisp.
Well, the thing is, Deep Space Nine isn't in 1080p. It's never been remastered, and I mean, there's reasons for it. It's expensive to do, but if they could pick just a few episodes,
but I wish they would do it because it deserves it so much.
I'm sure somebody during this discussion will say that this could be a film. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think it would take much for it to have been a bit of a rewrite. I think it could be a film, but to me, it still feels like it sits within a series. And at the end, my final comment is Miles O'Brien proper kiss his ass, right? Because he says to Worf, because Worf says he's got a lot to learn about command.
But I have a lot to learn about command.
And he says to Worf, "Oh, you couldn't ask for a better teacher." But while he's saying that, he's basically looking at Sisko walking past him, and it's the biggest kiss-ass moment ever in Star Trek.
You couldn't ask for a better teacher.
But that's it. That's all I've got to say in this episode. I thought it was very, very
my
good.
Turn?
Go on, Gibbo.
Guess what? I've actually done some homework. I've got written shit for a change.
I thought you were going to say you didn't like it.
No. For me, this is one of the best episodes of all Star Trek for me.
Yeah.
But one of the things that nagged me the first bit is when they're searching for Odo as a shapeshifter and he first changes from the chair. How bad is their reactions to phasing him? They basically looked at him, watched him change into a chair, and then shoot out the window. I'm like, you could have shot him 15 times. You soldiers. It's a thing's not supposed to be moving. Kill the bastard thing and just shoot it.
I didn't pick up on that. I'll have to rewatch it.
They basically, him and Kira went, phaser in, went to the next room. The chair started moving. They went, oh, the chair's moving. Oh, no, the chair's gone. And then, oh, shit. I went, you should have shot the fucking thing. It was moving. I Googled this. And it might be an oh my.
Oh my.
Yeah. This was the first time Martok ever arrived in Deep Space Nine. When he arrived on the ship, they asked him to do a blood test, and they all tested positive for being human or normal. But at this point in the series, Martok was a changeling.
Was he?
That's what I said.
The writers later on. The writers later on had up by writing a later episode and didn't realise that they'd done this. Martok was already a changeling at this point.
Yes.
That's why when he was on the bridge going, no, kill, it was already a changeling. It was already in fucking Gowron's head that they wanted to take DS9.
At this point in time, he's on an asteroid as a Jem'Hadar prisoner.
Yeah, no,
fighting for his life.
We knew that's what it relates to. Yeah.
When the Dominion came into it and they started wiping all the Klingons out, that's when he gets captured. When the Dominion come in, because right now the Dominion aren't with the Cardassians.
No.
So why is he in a Dominion prison then?
Is there reference to it though on screen? That's what
I think so.
I'll
yeah,
find out.
I think Martok says when he was captured. And he says it in the prison with Worf.
When they did the writing, they had to bring into the bit where later in the series, when Sisko's arguing with his dad about blood testing because they were going to test all the Earth. They go, well, they could fake it. They could do this. They could do that. They could do the other.
Yeah.
They had to put that into the storyline so they could put pouches under the wrists. When they cut the wrist, they could be face blood. They fake it. Garrick, I fucking love his character. It makes me so laugh. It's when all the Klingons walk into his tailor shop, and Garrick went, "You must be lost, or you must be desperately looking for a tailor," because he knows he's going to get his arse kicked. You know what I mean? But he's going to get that one word in before he gets his arse kicked by, and it takes 5 Klingons to kick one tailor's arse.
You're either lost or desperately searching for a good tailor.
Garrett's got about 5 or 6 awesome lines throughout this entire episode. So.
And that's one. And he knows he's going to get his arse kicked. So I'm going to get the first word in before you get a chance to do it. And he takes it like a champion. When they're doing blood testing, when all the guys come on, why are they doing blood testing through shirts and clothing? Because when he does thingy, he does it through his armour. Yeah. Like, you should roll your sleeve up when you're doing blood testing.
Because it's not invasive and it's new technology.
What do they phaser it through or fucking transport it?
Transporter, yeah. That easy.
Dude, I'm going to transport your blood by just touching it from here. They could do it on the table. We don't have to go near their arm. We go, I'm going to do it from here, mate. I don't have to touch you.
It's magic. Oh, your L-cars looks amazing.
Look at that.
That looks amazing there, yeah.
Just like you're on Shuttlebay.
It does look like you do look like you're on a shuttle.
In a shuttle, sorry. In a
shuttlecraft, yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like the shuttle bays on Enterprise where they have that platform upstairs up on the mess. It's like he's standing in there.
Yeah. I see it.
What do you know about Enterprise, Steve?
Just that I don't like it, Brush.
Yeah.
And it looks like that, obviously.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go mad about the episode, but I think the episode is amazing. I remember, I think I was with you, Gibbo. Did we queue up at WX Smith's at the middle of the night to go and get these videos with Dickie? But yeah, I remember queuing up to get this because you got a free cardboard box like the Voyager.
You did,
4.
yeah. You did. You slept out all night, didn't you, at HMV?
So we could get this video. It had a reverse cover. It was so the hype was amazing. And bear in mind, you didn't get trailers back then, so you only got the magazine from America saying Worf's coming into the series.
Yeah,
and it was this.
Well, it was leaked, wasn't it? Because it was supposed to be a secret, but they leaked it, so the fans knew Worf was going to be in it. And
But I just remember that feeling when I'd watched this episode, and I know Sisko changed because the actor didn't want to go bold. They never want him to be bold in the original series. So he got his way this time, and that's probably why he's more confident in this, because he could be himself.
Nice.
Again, full of great lines. The action was incredible and all this. The one thing I want to get in is I remember as a kid, I always wanted to know what the Dax say to Worf.
Look, Ajikchim Tala.
She talks about being Dax, and then she says, yes, but I'm much better looking than he was.
A Ajikchim Tala, something like that. That's not it exactly, but
I just remember that moment. I was, again, with Dax feeling so much confident and playful. Honestly, I can't pick.
Patches.
I can't pick fault with this episode. So I'm not going to talk too long about it because everyone's going to have so much to say about it. But for me personally, it transformed me back to when I was a kid, queuing up for these videos. And every time I watch that episode, it's one of my favourite top 5 episodes I will watch every single time. And I just get the same feeling every time.
Queuing up all night, that's proper fan, that is. to get your cardboard box.
I'll go next. I've got a few things to say hot off the heels of what Dan said. And it was about the movie aspect of this episode. I think this is the movie that DS9 never got. I really do. Even though it's not in 1080p, and that was hard to shut up about as well. I mean, what did I get from this? It started off with a great teaser. The civvy clothes are slightly better than any other civvy clothes in any Star Trek, I think. And then we get this massive Klingon fleet decloak. And I did notice, actually, there was no D7 battlecruiser, my favourite Klingon ship, that iconic thing. And I did see one later, but as the whole fleet decloaked, didn't see one. I was a bit disappointed there. I love the blood test.
What I think doesn't matter. The blood will tell.
I love the fact that it's, it's the 24th century. And it's a real kind of blood brothery, this is a covenant between the real people, not the shapeshifters. And like Gibbo said, I knew he's a changeling at this point. So I had to swallow that. I had to just grin and bear it, but it was a good scene. Yeah. I actually thought he was going to taste Kira's blood as well when he gets it up in his finger and he does that. That moves smoothly on into the Dax thing. And I think Dan touched on that already. Dax is very comfortable with her sexuality, I think. She's very comfortable being a big sexual person. You know what I mean? She's really big. She's bold. She owns it. She doesn't shy from it. She enjoys herself with it.
I didn't think of this before, but when Sisko ever talks about Curzon, he also talks about him in a really that kind of way. He was always very, very comfortable, with the women, and even at an older age was a bit of a womanizer.
And I think totally that Jadzia Dax is very comfortable in her own skin, enjoying her sexuality. She's not a typical Rick Berman style female character, to be honest, which may be why she didn't do the distance. She tries to bring Kira out of herself a little bit.
There's a bit of dogging going on.
What is going on?
That's awesome. That's off your t-shirt.
Look at that. Yeah, awesome. It's just... I'll treasure that. Thank you. I don't know what to say now.
You've shot Patches up. Do it again.
What I love about this episode is everybody's here, and that's what gives it that movie quality.
All the main characters.
Martok, Galron, Garak, the whole crew, Gul Dukat, Quark is there. Morn is in there. I love that everyone gets a piece to do. There's several key moments for each character, and it does advance the story. The ancillary characters that are in the background usually really move or make a point. For instance, as Gibbo said, it takes 5 Klingon warriors to do a tailor, because he's obviously not a tailor. And the thing he says, when he says you got a broken clavicle and you've got fractured this and your ribs are busted, he said, I got off several cutting remarks, which will no doubt do serious damage to their ego. I love that. Yeah, and do you know what? That's classic Star Trek fan as well, because I suppose every geek at some point had to take some shit for being a sci-fi fan. It's a geek by a gang of mindless thugs like those Klingons, basically. And I'll tell you something else as well. That exchange between Quark and Garak, where they're talking about root beer and how that symbolizes the Federation.
I think on all of Star Trek, that one conversation is absolutely amazing, and I think it's the best written thing in any Star Trek ever.
It's wild. I know. It's so bubbly and happy.
Just like the Federation.
But you know what's really frightening? If you drink enough of it, you begin to like it.
I love that moment, and it's kind of like, do you think they'll save us? And it's not just the people on the station and their life on the station. Do you think they'll save the station? But actually, are they going to save the quadrant? Are they going to prevent this galactic war? And if it is war, will they win? Will freedom win? They need that root beer culture to survive. They need that moral culture.
And the worst part of it is, my only hope for salvation is the Federation.
And again, like Dan said, that universe, the world building comes into play in just a very short conversation over a bit of Kanar and a bit of root beer. And I love the Kanar bottle. I just think that tastes like tropical juice to me. Every time I see it, I want to taste it.
Every time they pour it, it's different.
Yeah,
sometimes it's syrupy, sometimes it's liquidy, sometimes it's brown, sometimes it's green. So it's like, what?
I just want the bottle.
The bottle's classic. But that world building comes out, and it comes out again in small comments. I think Kira said something with the illegal search of a ship in Bajoran space. And the Klingons are like, we'll search this ship, we'll test everyone, we'll do what we like. And she said something like, we're not subject to illegal stop and search here. Because Bajor was under that totalitarian regime, and now they've got a very liberal, very free system. And that percolates all the way through this episode, I think. What else have I got? Worf steps on to DS9. And as Dan said, he's got the ship uniform, the next-gen uniform. There was a few nice bits, like nice hat. I love that.
Nice hat.
The prune juice, when Quark laughs and it's like prune juice. And it was just a genuine laugh, and it just burst out of it. I love that.
Prune juice, chilled.
Prune juice.
The situation where Worf's kind of, like the new guy in a dinner hall, or when you start a new place and it's lunchtime, and you turn around with your tray and there's all these tables, and you're like, where do I go? And O'Brien's like, over here, Worf, over here. I love that moment, because at that point in time, you think Worf's looking for a friendly face, and he finds it in O'Brien. We get that kind of calm before the storm, where you've got Garak and Quark sharing that root beer and having that conversation, and then the storm hits, the battle hits. We get to see the fully kitted out DS9 doing what it does best, defending itself finally. You see these birds of prey strafing DS9 and just get taken out in 2 shots, just bang, and they're exploding. And I'm like,
the one thing you hear in this episode, you should hear much more often, is fire at will.
Fire at will.
And what did Will do to deserve that? I don't know. To deserve that? I don't know. But
I know, Will's always picked on, isn't he?
I know. The birds of prey were flying apart.
Basically, you see battles, and they could take photon blasts all the time, but why were they getting smashed in one hit?
Just to see the Klingon ships get totaled. Absolutely totaled, and thinking, how comes the station can do that when other ships like the Enterprise can't just take out a bird of prey like that? Maybe the station generates a lot more power.
Fire!
And in that battle, as Jed points out, we see a beautiful battleship grade D7 in all its glory, and it's taking some hits. And as soon as I saw the D7, I was like, yeah, do you know what? I was getting worried I wasn't going to see one.
It gets blown to bits, doesn't it, though, Patches?
And rightly so.
Yeah, good one, JP. What can I say that JP hasn't said already? But personally, what I think, the one thing I did like about the episode was when Deep Space Nine went into battle and you saw the torpedo pylons coming out and they went like that. It's the whole theatre of it as well. Like when the Defiant was going up against the Klingon ships, you had that downward view and you could see the phasers pulsing off, and the way the torpedoes came away from Deep Space Nine and you followed them hitting their Klingon targets. It's just the theatre that Star Trek really gets.
My only criticism of this episode is that the Klingons came across as a bit weak. They always stood down. Like whenever you had somebody like facing them off, the Klingons would just stand down. And I got the impression that it wasn't very honourable a lot of the time.
And ending a battle to save an empire is no defeat.
In this case, the Klingons, particularly Martok's son, wasn't an honourable man. And I thought to myself, is Worf an exceptional Klingon, or is he a garden variety Klingon? Because all of these guys are cowards. And it's right what Worf said. And he turned around and he said, you beat up a tailor. You're searching unarmed freighters. You're roughing up people, and you're giving loads of mouth to the one changeling here, and all of that. And you lot have got no honour.
That's the first time I've never heard that said, and I'd have to go back now and watch it again to try and look at it from that perspective, because I've never picked up that the Klingons come across as possibly weak.
Way of the Warrior is every DS9 episode. I love it so much. It's my top number one episode. It's got everything in it. A lot of you already mentioned the things I wrote down, so I won't go through the same things again. But first of all, I've got to say, seeing Bold Cisco for the first time was mind-blowing for me. That's the way he was supposed to look. This is what he means business. He looked amazing. Also, the scene with him and Cassidy Yates at the beginning as well, when she gets the Tholian silk and she gives a baseball cap off. That's a lovely scene between them two as well. He loves baseball. He's willing to fly all the way there at maximum warp for about 8 weeks by maximum warp to watch a real baseball game.
To see a real baseball game, it might be worth the trip.
Also, I've got to say, I love Martok. I'll probably say he's my favourite Klingon. I love Martok so much.
That would be unfortunate for the Cardassians.
And obviously, J.G. Helster, who plays him, is a brilliant guy to meet in person as well. He's fantastic. But Martok's son, Drex, is so despicable. It's unbelievable.
I love the word despicable. That's awesome.
It's like, I can't believe Martok is the guy of honour, and his son is so bad. What he does to Morn, what he does to Garrick, and he insults Quark in his bar, throwing his blood wine. This one's cold. Give me another one.
This blood wine is cold. Get me another one.
And I love the way how Worf humiliates Greg at the sports bar. He deserved that. You know, let's put him in his place. And when Jandia says he's good, like that's what I think. When she probably thinks, I like this guy. I think that her attraction towards him started at that moment. I really think she liked him from that moment.
Yeah, definitely.
He's good.
And that scene when Dax and Kira came up with the hats on, I thought that was such a great scene. So funny. Oh my God.
Nice hat.
He's supposed to kiss you. Oh my God.
He kissed me. He's supposed to kiss you.
And then when Julian introduces them, this is our first officer and the science officer. And I normally dress like this. I'm like, oh.
I don't usually dress like this.
So many good moments. There's funny, serious, action. And like somebody said before, everyone plays a part in this episode. Every scene is like exciting to watch. You get something out of it. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And I also like the way that Jandia said to Worf, there's got to be someone that owes your family a favour. Of all the Klingons here, you know, which I thought was really clever. When Kirby had so much dealings with Klingons, she's inherited that from the Dax Symbiont.
With so many Klingons around, there must be someone who owes your family a favor.
And that was such good advice. So the way he sang with that guy, brilliant Klingon song, I love that song as well. And the bang heads at the end. And the scene between Odo and Worf, when Worf was like thinking about what to do, feeling guilty about betraying the Klingons again. Then Odo says to him, like, I'm in the same position. Do I betray my people or do I show my allegiance to Starfleet? Which is, was really good scene as well between them two.
I've also had to choose between duty and loyalty to my people.
I'm going to say Garrick is a magic in this episode. Garrick is one of my all-time favorite characters. His dialogue, every scene with him. And he says to Dukat, who knew that they would be standing side by side, fighting one next to one another? And Dukat says to him, like, make sure aim that phaser at a Klingon, basically, not anybody else.
Just remember, when you fire that thing, you're aiming it at a Klingon.
Oh gosh, the hate for have each other, but them side by side, that was great. That was a great scene as well. The station being filled up with photon, torpedoes, phasers, I thought that was some magic. I get goosebumps watching that. Just see, oh, beautiful. I'm gonna say, when Defiant goes to rescue the council members, the Cardassian council members, I love the sound of the Defiant firepower. I love it so much. It's just so brilliant. And the way that he flies through the fight, the explosion, and the Defiant comes through, I just cheer every time. I think it's absolutely brilliant to see that. It's absolutely magnificent. Wow, I love the Defiant. I think that's my favourite ship, Star Trek. That's how much I love the Defiant.
As well as all the ancillary characters and the station and the crew, we get the Defiant as well. I mean, it's all here.
Unbelievable, incredible. And I love when Siska says, I guess we're going to see how much of a pounding the ship can take.
I love that.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going to find out just how much of a pounding this ship can take.
And I've got to say, I love the way Siska says battle stations. Wow.
Yeah,
brilliant.
definitely. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
$1,000,000%. Yeah.
Fire.
Battle stations.
I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, nice one, Rashid. Nice one. Steve, you're up. Let's go.
Steve, yeah, go ahead.
Go on, Steve.
All right.
Did you like it? Did you like
I
it?
did. Very much.
Yes!
What I really loved about this was, for me, a lot of the watching Star Trek, a lot of it is about, as I've said before, the ships, the battles, the fights, the things like that. And this has been building for quite a while by the time you get to this point. And when you get into this episode, you're like, shit's got real. Okay, there's people dying. There's this is war, essentially. And this for me is where it gets really good, because like everyone said, you've got all the characters, everybody knows where they are and what they're doing. They've all got their part. It's like this whole jigsaw coming together. Of everybody in the right places, and their fucking fleets of ships, and the way it then becomes very apparent how they've been retrofitting DS9, and like guys have said, when all these weapons come out, you're sitting there and you're rubbing your hands, and you're just like, right, this is where it really kicks off.
Yeah,
and for me, I love that. The indecision Warp has about which side he's on, I think he's done that a lot before. I think it's a little bit worn in that respect. It's like, mate, every single time you choose the Federation, shut the fuck up and get on with it.
I'm a Starfleet officer.
Just suck it up. You're already miserable. Take it from someone that knows. Get on with it. Right? Stop. Anyway, yeah. So like I was saying, the whole battle thing was great. I love the look on Ducat's face when he finds out that he can't really say no to Garak because he needs him, but he also hates it with an absolute passion. And as I've mentioned before, when you listen to his book or read his book, it really intensifies the feeling between the two of them. You really understand it. But yeah, I love that. I love the fact that Garak knows he's got one up on him. Yeah, so I really like the episode. That's when shit gets real and you start seeing the battles, because then that leads to the Cardassians going into the Gamma Quadrant, and then you've got another big battle. So that really, for me, it was almost like by the time I was getting to the start of season 4, it was like you had all these snippets of events that you sort of knew were going to unfold. You knew there was a good chance they'd end up in a battle, and there's a skirmish here type scenario, and there's a little bit of friction there, and it's just like, for fuck's sake, you're going to end up with the Federation going to war with the Dominion. Just get bloody on with it. And it's almost like there's this upcoming promise, in a sense, that there's going to be a war.
I found it interesting because they did do the Dominion thing and built that up, but what was interesting was they took it a different way and made it the Klingons and Cardassians, and now this is a situation we're going to have to deal with, while in the background we know this is still brewing. I thought that was quite clever.
But for me, it was all those throughout the previous season. There was all these teasers that this was coming to a head, and it was almost every time you saw something to do with changelings or the Jem'Hadar, you were like, oh, is this going to be it? Is this going to be it? And then it finally started kicking in when it all went pear-shaped with the Klingons.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but Gowron's eyes, they couldn't have found any character, any actor better to play this dude.
That's what he's famous for, man.
It is, and it's just like I wonder if they had that in mind, or whether that was something that he did. That
No,
made
he did it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, during the audition, he needed an angle, and he knew he needed an angle, so he did the whole eyes thing. I think JG in his audition went mad, didn't he? Started throwing furniture around and all that.
I can't remember who it was, but they did literally throw stuff around, didn't they? And throw chairs around.
His eyes just made it. It really, really does. But especially because the moment he says "glory to you," the eyes are going to come out. And your house.
Glory to you and your house.
This thing's fucking nuts, but he's brilliant. I love the fact that they brought the Klingons onto DS9 and they actually boarded them. And then that whole to and fro between Sisko with the whole, we've boarded your station, we've got boots on the ground. And he's like, yeah, but you're all contained. So, don't give me that bullshit. We've got you.
Yeah.
We've got you. There's nothing really you can do without taking heavy losses.
I think that kind of plays into what Gibbo was saying, because Galron was like, it's an honourable thing to back out at this point. Yeah. And Martok was pushing it. We'll never surrender. Yeah. Go. I believed it. I believed in what he was saying. He was like, yeah, we're not going to win this day. And suicide isn't really an honourable thing to do right now.
I'm not entirely sure the right now was a necessary statement on the end of that.
Yeah, for me, loved the episode. It was really weird because I was watching it and...
Steve loves the episode.
Shut up. There you go. Gibbo, you've done what nobody else has managed to do, and that's find an episode that Steve likes. Congratulations. Yeah. That's an accolade and a half, my friend.
I love this episode. I love everything DS9. And this one is your quintessential Klingon episode. It's brilliant from start to finish. Let alone does it give you more in-depth story into the Klingons and the honor base and going back to the old ways, but it's just the fight scenes. On Netflix, this is a 15 for a reason.
Yeah. Which is I think it was the first. I think it was the first ever release of 15, which was when you were buying it on VHS. I didn't queue up like Penfold overnight, but I did buy it on the day it was released, and it was a 15, which was amazing. You were really excited already, right?
And you can see how everybody's suspicious of everybody else because of the Dominion, basically, because the changelings could be anybody.
Schedule another surprise drill. If the Dominion tries to infiltrate the station, I want to be ready for them.
Anywhere. And that's basically what this is about. But it's the fight scenes.
Fear, that's what it's about.
Yeah. It's the fight. I can't really put on what Patch is, what Dan's put on it, what Gibbo's. It's not really a lot else I can stick on it, but I love this. I think it's great. The fight scenes alone, the first real fight scene in Star Trek, where shit is blowing up here, there, and everywhere. I love the Defiant, and to see the Defiant in all its glory for the first time, kicking shit out with
properly fighting as well, and seeing how maneuverable it was. And
not with them shit.
Quantum torpedoes.
Hang on a minute. Have we got Darth Vader on here or something? What the hell is that noise?
I don't know, is it?
But I love it. The Defiant is my favourite ship. You can stick the Galaxy D up your ass. The Defiant's brilliant. It's fantastic, Patches. I love it. It's the best ship ever. But yeah, D7, all the classic ships are there. D7, you see at the end, you see the Excelsior class to Excelsior class. That's all I can say about this. Everyone's said enough. It's just a brilliant episode.
What annoyed me about DS9, they've got this big hole where the Jem'Hadar, the Dominion are coming through. Yet they didn't ever actually put a Galaxy class ship on DS9 to protect it.
Well, you see, when they first go into
they're coming through. How about we just put some ships here, because all the shit's happening here, but, we're 500 miles away.
It's that first episode. You see the Jem'Hadar ships basically suicide run a galaxy class and destroy it. They wipe it out. And that's over the other side of the wormhole. So they know what they're capable of. So if a galaxy class can, basically, which at the time was the best ship, can't withstand against a few Jem'Hadar fighters.
But they should at least add some ships around DS9 all the time.
Yeah, they should have had a fleet of ships around DS9, but they never did.
It's true for naval combat now. If you've got a dreadnought, a big, massive battleship, and it's being, consistently attacked by fighter jets, it's not going to last.
Still, though, this particular station, though, was still a Bajoran station, not a Federation station.
Yeah, because they never joined Starfleet, really, did they?
They did eventually, but yeah, it was still always, it's still even then a Bajoran one that they administer on their behalf, that's all. So I'll say something then. So there was a guy that was employed to design new Klingon ships for this episode. It was almost like, well, we'd like to see a few new Klingon ships. So he came up with lots of concept designs for them, but budget made them cut those out. So they actually went back to the episode, All Good Things, TNG finale.
Yeah.
And when they were in the future, this appeared in that episode, and it was only supposed to be a one-off. It is in a different universe, but because of budget, they thought, we'll bring it back out and we'll use that particular design. And then, interestingly, for the guy that made the concepts for those new ones that didn't appear, they were used for Enterprise in the series Enterprise. So it's like, for him, it was like, it wasn't all in vain kind of thing.
It's when Martok says, "My men need shore leave," and you just see one ship. And you go, come on over next minute.
Yeah.
You just see the entire task force.
I think that's what they did with this episode very, very cleverly. What they did to us was open it with this very serious thing. And we actually thought this was real. We didn't know it was just a drill. Then we did. And then they introduced like the Klingons, but they did it like you said with one ship and this hello, and then all of a sudden all these ships, but they mentioned like we don't know how many ships there are. They keep cloaking and recloaking and we don't know how many there are. And what they tried to do with this particular episode, I think, because you have mentioned a few of you, well, they tried to make it that you had everything in it. It was action, but there was also the social element of the crew, and you had Jadzia and Kira in the holosuite, and that was odd for Kira. You had Brian and Bashir, they were still doing that kind of relationship of silly at the bar kind of thing. Every scene was so good throughout the whole thing, and it made the story flow, and it actually allowed the suspense, because we watched it several times. It's hard to have suspense anymore, but when you watched that, you didn't have a clue what was going on. It was a serious thing going on the station, a war, and then you had a realization that was a drill, and you had a nice soft relationship with Cisco, I felt, and Cassidy that really opened up that this feels like better than we've seen before. Even that part of it felt better. Then you had Klingons, and you had this mystery, why are the Klingons here? None of us know. We have to phone Worf.
Yeah.
And then along comes
the
Worf and
torch in the sky and bring him in.
Almost Batman torch. Yeah, Worf torch.
The Worf torch.
Go for it, D, because I don't have call because I wasn't expecting to join today, but
bonus that you are with us though.
Yeah, sweet.
I was allowed. I won't say I was allowed because I can do what I want. I'm a strong, independent man. But
remember the opening scene when you got Kira and Cisco with the guns and you got the big dramatic music and it gets you in the mood. It sets the scene straight away. And you're thinking who they're looking for, what they're looking for, and then I'm thinking they're actually chasing a real, you know what I mean, a real Dominion changelings on board, and that's what they're looking for. And it's not. It was just a test dummy run, and Odo was, and they were like, "We've got him, bang, you're dead." He went, "Well, so's Bashir," and I just thought, well, why are they practicing on Odo? Because
it's the only changeling they've got.
I know he's the only changeling they've got. It just seemed like a futile exercise, like Gibbo said. He got away with doing far too much. He got away far too easily. And it's like, oh, bang, you're dead. Well, so's Bashir.
Yeah, I couldn't believe Brian O'Brien said, bang, you're dead.
Yeah, we all get that because we know what guns are and they go bang, and we'd say that as kids, bang, you're dead, but phasers don't go bang. So what was that about?
Bang, you're dead. You should have gone, you're dead.
But the fact that they were doing this serious drill, and then Quark came over and said to him, like, how long do you think it'll take you next time to find George? Can you give us any ideas on the numbers? Can we get some odds, please? They're trying to get a betting scam going when they're trying to do a serious life or death situation drill. I thought that was quite cheeky of him to Quark to try and set up a betting.
Also, just to like expand on him and know, it's like to ask Odo, the one person you wouldn't ask, but you just rubbing it in his face. You know what I mean?
I thought the cute date with Cisco and Yates before it was like, you better come and see this. You know, where they got the nice gifts for each other. I thought, oh, is this going to go a bit sloppy? Is this going to go a bit, you know, romantic? We're going to get a softy side to Cisco now. And I thought, we're not getting into the mushy, are we? And thankfully we didn't, because Dax called him away and said, you've got to come and see this.
Dax is Cisco.
I was overwhelmed with the Martok, Galron, Garak, Goldicart, everybody. Do you know what I mean? I was just so happy to see every one of those characters in this episode at the same time.
More?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll get to him in a minute. The question I wanted was, how did the Cardassians overrun the Central Command? Because they don't really go into any detail about
Obsidian Order, because the Obsidian Order has been completely and utterly wiped out. The civilian...
Yeah, they've had a change in government, yeah.
And because that's happened, the Klingons have gone, that's a bit sus.
Yeah.
And that's why they managed to do it. Okay.
And I like that you picked up on the Cardassian government change, because that was an important part of the storyline that was going on.
And the fact that, well, Kira was uncomfortable with relaxing in the hollows, you know, in the holodeck with Dax.
Yeah.
She just, every time, you know what I mean, relaxing with the massage and the sauna, or going off to play, role play, I think. She just could not relax with any of it. And I just found, I felt a bit sorry for her.
I feel sorry for the Ferengi that has to mop that floor in the morning.
Well, they did a joke on that on Lower Decks, didn't they? That was a running joke.
Yeah.
A dirty job.
What I've written down is Klingons had no beds except Worf.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to be your friend, but I'm not anymore.
Well, Klingons had no beds for two reasons. They were bullying Morn and they were attacking Garak. And I just thought, bunch of no beds.
They started on Quark as well, didn't they? Because he served a cold blood wine and they started lashing it across the bar.
I just thought, bunch of no beds. And this was when Cisco decided to get in. I remember this is the bit where he walks in and you just see the door open, you see the feet coming through, and then it pans up and it's Worf in his TNG. Security outfit. I remember first time watching that, we remember cheering when I first saw that. Because we didn't know at the time, when the first time we watched it, but we know now that this is the first time Dax and Worf meet, and you can see the chemistry.
You used to be Curzon Dax.
That's right.
Almost instantly, especially from her side. You know what I mean? You can see her giving him the eye, and we're like, oh, hello.
Like that first conversation she has with him, really, in the bar, where she talks Klingon back to him, which is what we wanted to know what she said. Well, that was a flirt straight away, yes. But I'm much better looking. You know what I mean?
No, I like the scene where they realised that the Federation couldn't warn Cardassia, so they cleverly invited Garak to just come and take some, innocent measurements for a new suit, and then just have this conversation right in front of him, knowing full well that the first thing Garak's going to do is phone home and say,
that's what
the Klingons
they want him
are
to
coming,
do,
what
isn't
you
it? That's
do
what they want
about
him
it.
to do, I liked it because Garak said, didn't he? Garak said, I've already got your measurements. He's like, yes, well, come and take them again.
I've lost
just
a little
come and take them
bit
again.
Top. I've lost a bit of head weight off the top.
Don't forget the waist. I think I've lost a little weight.
I liked it when he decided he was going to stay, and then you see him gone from his yellow TNG, and then he comes up on the platform in his red command, and he's in his DS9 uniform. Then I fell asleep towards the end of it, nearly.
I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, she found it boring.
I did a bit.
For me, I agree with some of what Dee's saying. Some of the fight scenes were, to say the Klingons are supposed to be a big warrior race. They got their arse.
It's different. Normally you see the Federation getting their asses kicked.
Did you watch this episode, John Joe?
I've seen this episode about 8 times, but I because I didn't think I was coming tonight, I don't have any notes or
didn't
anything.
make- okay.
So
Only 8 as
everything's
well. Only 8.
I remember watching this as a kid as well, and finally thinking, finally, I've got a good battle scene.
Me
because
too, to know. That was why this episode means so much to me, because it was, for me, I always went, yes, war! War! I like Penfold. I didn't queue up. I bought it the day it was released. And me watching this episode was that excited. You know, it does take me back when I watch it. And that's why it is one of my favourite episodes. It's when I got what I wanted from Star Trek. Proper fighting battle scenes. I am a Babylon 5 fan, so they had really good battle scenes in Babylon 5 compared to Star Trek.
It's nice to finally not have to shout at the screen, "Fucking shoot them!"
Yeah.
Sorry, Dan.
Open fire! All weapons!
Fire at will! The opening scene is amazing. I think as well, you've got to go back and remember what was the last thing we saw from Deep Space Nine. So season 3, The Adversary. I don't know if you remember that episode. The Adversary was when they were sent on a mission and realized there was a changeling infiltrator aboard the Defiant while they were going on this mission. And so it already introduced this massive element of changeling danger. And then Way of the Warrior started. And you seriously know it was the changeling infiltration. And then I kind of mentioned, as you go through the episode, it was done really well in, I can't do this anymore because I've watched it so many times. But when you did watch it, it brought all the elements into it in stages. And you were only allowed to know certain information as the episode carried on and on and on. And that still, because the writing was done so well. You knew this was bigger than an episode you'd seen before. And it was definitely, I have to reiterate it, it felt, this is the first line I've written, from the opening scene, it felt like Deep Space Nine 2.0. It really, really did. Everything was better than you had seen before. Everyone's mentioned the characters. When you saw every character, every one of them felt even more developed than you'd seen them previously. Even when Dax and Kira were in a fucking holodeck program, half naked, it still felt their characters were stronger than we had seen previously in the writing of them.
Do you think seeing all of the characters in this episode of this new season was almost like a roll call?
We did see a really good story for each character, every one of them. It was Worf's first episode, so you kind of could have expected it to be a Worf thing, you know, an absolute. But they never ever did that. They never allowed Worf to become the main point of their story. They used him as they needed to for the story arc. But every character of the series that we know, so again, they introduced several characters we know before. We didn't know Martok, but a brilliant character that we learned to love. We knew Dukat, we knew kind of Gowron from previous episode, but they used so many amazing outside characters, but with each character within Deep Space Nine cast, they give them something to do. They really did. We have mentioned it. I don't know, the pacing of it is so well done, and it gives us stuff that we have never seen before, like proper battle scenes. Deep Space Nine, just go in, fire at will, and seeing that one scene, like Rashid said, was so awesome and beautiful. So yeah, again, like everyone said, also it brought the Klingons back to what we know as Klingons. The Klingons are supposed to be the antagonist almost of the story. Hello. And so it brought them back to something we recognise more. To have them as an ally was quite awkward in TNG, actually. They did work it into the story and try to create some conflict. But actually, the Klingons work better as the enemy. Right, so just going back, I mentioned about Season 3 and the ending of Season 3. So originally, this was going to be a cliffhanger. They wanted a cliffhanger episode for Season 3 into Season 4. Paramount went, no, we don't want a cliffhanger, actually. The ratings are slacking. We want emphasis. We want you to do something serious for the last episode of Season 3, and we want you to think of something, change it up. We need rating boosting. So they had to change the story they were going to do, and they brought it back to the story I mentioned where you had the changeling in the last episode of Season 3 infiltrating it, leaving a massive open-ended storyline of that changeling whispering into Odo's ear, we're everywhere. And then it was like, wow. So it was like, no, we don't know what's going to happen. And then Season 4 opens, and it was that amazing episode that they gave us. One of our favourite, everyone's, is the root beer scene, yeah? Well, that was written in really, really late, and it was only done because they thought they were running out of time. This is a 2-part episode, which was released as a one feature-length episode. And then when they had to cut it to release it as 2 one-hour episodes with the adverts in, they had to cut out certain scenes from this. So I've never seen these on air, because I guess America, is where you'd see more of it. But they had to cut out the scene with Dax and Kira in the holosuite originally.
Yeah.
They had to cut out the scene where you had Bashir and O'Brien doing their stupid pee routine, but Quark talking about how quiet it was, about root beer. And the producers kind of went mad with they went, no, this is the one scene that we have to keep. And it was written in really late, but they kind of all loved it. So I find it quite interesting how scenes that we recognize as the best, or some best written scenes, are obviously going to be cut out of some of the series we know, just because of time constraints, stuff like that. And the other one interesting fact about that scene is Armin Shimmerman and Andrew Robertson decided to play it with that subtle, the subtext that's going on that we all recognize from it, because it's quite obvious. Well, the director decided, no, I don't want that subtext. I want it to be played for laughs. I want this scene to be an actual played for laughs scene. And the actors disagreed enough with him that Ira Stephen Bay, who had to come down and make a decision, and he chose the way the actors were going to act it, which is how we know it. But can you believe how, again, another scene that is so amazing, and I consider one of the best scenes, was on the verge of never, ever being shown on screen, which... it's like, how many scenes have we missed out on because of that kind of thing? A director's decision or an actor's decision or something like that. To save budget, then they had to save budget a lot. So I mentioned that somebody was paid to draw up specs and concepts for new Klingon ships and battleships and stuff. And yet, because of budget, they went, well, we can't actually do that. We'll table that, and they used them in Enterprise later. But because of the budget scenes, some of the battle scenes that we see, there's Playmate toys, there is Ertl model kits, and there's also Hallmark Christmas ornaments in the background of these scenes.
Yeah.
And what they've done is fill them up with explosive, but also glitter. And when I read this, and I said, haven't you noticed in this episode how every explosion is really glittery? Haven't you noticed that? I didn't pick up, and that when I read that, I was like, this particular episode has a lot of glittery explosions, and so I found that really, really interesting. Actually,
yeah, that's good.
The D7. Now you mention it, the D7.
Yeah, especially, yeah. Can you imagine though? That could have been a fucking Hallmark little Christmas ornament.
I like that. And as we found out in the museum, the actual props are really, really actually quite shit quality. They just do work magic on them.
Yeah.
Oh my!
I don't feel that Francesca gave that the energy it deserved there.
Oh my! Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Well, you can both say it.
Welcome to the do what we say. Say it.
You must comply.
3, 2,
adapt or die.
Oh my!
Francesca, resistance is futile.
Yeah, we never forced anyone to speak, but we kind of broke that then, didn't we? Right, you all know Doug Drexler. Is like the visual effects artist and done makeup and things like that on Star Trek and other things. Well, Martok's son Drex was named after Doug Drexler.
Oh wow, that's cool! Oh
my!
But also in Picard season 3, on one of the screens that they're using, there's a USS Drexler, also named after Doug Drexler.
Oh my!
Well, do you know Steve mentioned it's like a bit of a roll call this episode because all the characters are in it. I do feel that was really important in this episode in order to really feel like people were in danger, just to get a little reminder of who was on the ship and to see them acting in a natural way, just like sat in the bar having a drink and things. So I think that really added to that. And one thing that somebody mentioned about the Defiant, and I don't know whether it's just me imagining it, but the engine hum seems really loud in the Defiant on this episode, and I'm just wondering if that was done just to give it that kind of like claustrophobic feel. You can really hear it go, that engine sound.
Say in a previous episode
there was an episode.
It was Yesterday's Enterprise.
I didn't know you spoke Klingon.
Oh, you'd be surprised at the things you can learn when you're doing alterations. But I got off several cutting remarks, which no doubt did serious damage to their egos.
Prune juice, chilled.
Fruit juice.
Just what the station needs. Another Klingon.
I do not play games.
She knocked out Lancelot.
Nice hat. It would not be a fair match.
I'll go easy on you.
I'm glad we finally got rid of all those Klingons. Present company accepted, of course.
Well, I will tell the Romulans if you don't.
Are you aware there's a Klingon on your bridge?
How's a Ferengi supposed to make an honest living in a place like this?
Today is a good day to die.